Am I ever glad to see you? We don't have much time left before our presentation, only the rest of this week. Let's talk about what we still need to do.
Do we have that much left to do? I was under the impression we're just about ready. I've got all my data, the graphs and photos of the mountain.
We better go over what we have.
Oh, sure, but I have hockey practice in half an hour.
This won't take long, I hope. Now, I'll do the introduction. First, I'll talk about how the geologists at Volcano Watch detected another tiny earthquake on Stone Peak 2 weeks ago. The quake registered only 0.8, but they think it could be a part of a series of small quakes that precede an eruption. Then I'll give the history of the eruptions in that area.
How far are you going to go back?
2,000 years. That's the last time Stone Peak erupted. I won't go over every little eruption, just the 6 or 7 major ones in the range. Then I guess at that point I'll turn it over to you.
And I'll show my graphs. No, maybe the pictures first. At least this one of the bulge. George Davidson at the observatory gave me all these photographs. I still have to make slides out of them, and of my graphs too, but that won't take long. Aren't they awesome? Some really good shots of the mountain. You can really see how much the bulge has grown.
It's grown. How much? A few inches?
A few inches a year for the past 6 years. The bulge is forming because a chamber of magma below the surface is growing. The Earth's crust is being bent and bent. A few inches a year is a lot of bending, and sooner or later, it'll start to break open. Then there'll be a show. First, I'll show them the color picture, then the graphs showing the eruptions over the past 6 years, and then the series of black and white photos showing the bulge. It shows up better in black and white.
Then, when you're through with the slides, we should probably allow enough time for questions.
Yeah, that sounds good. That should about wrap it up. See, we're all set to go.
Number 1.
Today we'll begin our discussion on perspective, or how to represent three-dimensional forms on a two-dimensional surface. The basic rules of perspective date back to the early Renaissance and are still used today. Perspective can be challenging when you're first learning to draw from observation, but it's essential to grasp if you want your drawings to represent the visual world as you see it. An understanding of perspective is mandatory for anyone who does representational drawing. This includes professionals in a variety of fields: interior design, illustration, architecture, industrial design, and fine arts, to name a few. Simply put, perspective allows us to differentiate between objects of different sizes and at different distances from the viewer. It enables us to see immediately what the relationships are. The fundamental principle is that objects appear smaller as their distance from the observer increases. For instance, someone across the street appears smaller than the person standing next to you. Someone down the street looks even smaller, someone farther away looks smaller still, and so on. Think of buildings in a landscape, the cross ties of railroad tracks, the cars on a train. These are just a few things we know are approximately equal in size, yet seem to diminish with distance because of perspective. Everything in perspective is related to the concept of eye level, the horizontal line at the level of your eyes as you turn your head from side to side. Another related concept is the vanishing point. The vanishing point is a point at eye level where parallel lines going away from you appear to come together and then vanish. When you draw a building, for example, the vanishing point makes the building sort of recede in space and grow smaller. Yet in reality, you know the sides of the building are parallel. If lines are drawn along these sides, they will converge at a distant point, the vanishing point. In real life, the eye level is rarely visible and vanishing points virtually never are. Yet it's important for you to always work with an awareness of them. This is why I advise you to sketch eye level and vanishing points in every drawing, at least temporarily. Eye level and vanishing points will help you convey perspective. As you gain an understanding of perspective, you'll find that your work is more confident and you're better able to create a finished drawing from your sketches.
A volcano is a vent in the earth which erupts when hot liquefied rock or magma moves to the earth's surface, pouring out as lava. The lava may flow out as a liquid, or it may explode from the vent as solid or liquid particles accompanied by superheated gases. Ash and cinders form a cone around the vent. There are several types of volcanoes. The most fluid magmas erupt quietly and flow from the vent to form gently sloping shield volcanoes. The name shield volcano comes from their resemblance to the shields of early Germanic warriors. The lava flows from shield volcanoes are usually only 1 to 10 meters thick, but may extend for great distances from the vent. The volcanoes of Hawaii and Iceland are typical volcanoes of this type. Cinder cone volcanoes are formed when magmas with high gas contents and high viscosity are blown high into the air during an eruption. The magma falls as volcanic bombs, which accumulate around the vent and form steep-sided cones. Calderas, large basin-like depressions, are formed when a violent eruption blows the top off of an existing cone, or when the center of a volcano collapses. One famous caldera covers much of Yellowstone National Park. 600,000 years ago, there was a huge volcanic explosion which devastated the landscape. At the center, there remained only a smoldering caldera, a collapsed crater more than 40 miles wide. Yellowstone's famous geysers and hot springs lie within this giant basin.
Whether you're working with oil, tempera, or watercolor, it's the pigment that gives the paint its color. A pigment can either be mixed with another material or applied over its surface in a thin layer. When a pigment is mixed or ground in a liquid vehicle to form paint, it does not dissolve but remains suspended in the liquid. A paint pigment should be a smooth, finely divided powder. It should withstand the action of sunlight without changing color. A pigment should not exert a harmful chemical reaction upon the medium or upon other color pigments it is mixed with. Generally, pigments are classified according to their origin, either natural or synthetic. Natural inorganic pigments, also known as mineral pigments, include the native earths such as ochre, yellow iron oxide, and raw umber, brown iron oxide. Natural organic pigments come from vegetable and animal sources. Some examples are indigo from the indigo plant, and Tyrian purple, the imperial purple the Romans prepared from a shellfish native to the Mediterranean. Today, many pigments are synthetic varieties of traditional inorganic and organic pigments. Synthetic organic pigments provide colors of unmatched intensity and tinting strength. the synthetic counterparts of the yellow and red earths are more brilliant, and if well prepared, are superior in all other respects to the native products. Inorganic synthetic colors made with the aid of strong heat are generally the most permanent for all uses. In contrast, pigments from natural sources are less permanent than the average synthetic color.
The term tidal wave is often inaccurately used for a tsunami. Tsunamis have nothing to do with the action of tides. A more accurate term is seismic sea wave. There has to be a disturbance of the Earth's crust to produce a tsunami. Large earthquakes with epicenters under or near the ocean are the cause of most tsunamis. Volcanic eruptions and undersea landslides are also responsible, but unless accompanied by movements of the ocean floor, their effects are usually localized. Possibly this was true about the eruption of Krakatoa in 1883. A tsunami was responsible for most of the deaths caused by Krakatoa, yet this tsunami did not sink any ships. It did wash away several coastal villages and kill more than 36,000 people. Tsunamis work in complex ways. Some pounce on coastal settlements like large breakers. Others produce a gentle wave that floats buildings off their foundations. But then a violent backwash may sweep buildings and people out to sea. The tsunami that wrecked Hilo, Hawaii in 1946 was so forceful it folded parking meters. It caused needless deaths when people returned to save their belongings and got caught between waves. The deeper the water, the lower the tsunami and the faster it moves. In the open ocean, it travels at about 700 kilometers per hour, but being sometimes no more than a meter in height, a tsunami often passes a ship unnoticed. This is what happened in 1896 during a catastrophic tsunami in Japan, which was the result of an undersea earthquake. Thousands of people were drowned on shore, while fishermen far out at sea didn't notice the waves passing beneath their boats. But when they went home, they found their villages destroyed.
Good morning. I am Jeanette.
Good morning. I'm Don Balducci. I've been accepted as a freshman next year in the Faculty of Arts, and I would like information on what scholarships are available to first-year students.
There are many scholarships available to first-year students. Some are only for 1 year and others are for the full 4 years of the degree, provided that you maintain a specific high average.
What kind of marks do you need to apply for the scholarships?
Well, the top 2% of the entering freshman applicant pool are invited by the Faculty Committee on Honors, Awards, and Prizes to compete for the David White Scholarship. This is a scholarship of $10,000 a year. What are your marks like?
I have a 92% average from my school, but I have not yet received the marks from my government exams.
Well, if you get 95% or better on your government exams, you could definitely be considered as a candidate for the David White Scholarship. The government exam is weighted 50% and your local school marks are weighted 50%. Most students in the past who have received this award had an average of over 93% for their combined score.
If I don't get 95%, would you say there was no use applying?
Well, it certainly wouldn't be likely that you would be awarded this scholarship, but there is nothing preventing you from applying. There are generally about 400 applicants a year.
Does the David White Award guarantee me housing in the university residence?
Yes, it guarantees housing and residence for all 4 years, provided you maintain the requisite 3.0 grade point average. Another bonus, if you have a car, is parking privileges at the residence.
If I'm not in the top 2% of entering freshmen, what other scholarships can I apply for?
You could go to our website. The faculty committee selects students after a rigorous review of each student. Different awards have different criteria. Some scholarships and awards require you to write an essay, while others look at extracurricular activities, life hardships, distinctive personal achievements, or letters of recommendation. It varies widely.
How many scholarships are there in all to apply for?
There are well over 100. However, filling out scholarship applications is a time-consuming job, so I would recommend you narrow down the ones you want to apply for.
Do most scholarships apply to all 4 years?
No, most are on a yearly basis. The ones that are for the full 4 years, providing that you maintain your eligibility through the required GPA in all quarters, also usually give the additional privilege of preferential pre-enrollment. This has the advantage of giving you first crack at registering in the courses of your choice.
Are all scholarships determined by the same committee?
All full scholarships are. By the way, do you have a website address?
Yes, I have it here on your card. I picked up your card when I was at the open house in the spring.
Good. Well, then I would suggest you go to the website now. What is classical music?
Boring music played on the violin?
Well, violins are used, but for many people it is far from boring. But you are allowed to have your own opinion about it. The term classical shows where the influence comes from. What do you think classical refers to?
The Egyptians?
You are on the right track, but no.
The Greeks?
The music was influenced by ancient Greek and Roman ideals of balance, proportion, and controlled expression. The late Baroque style, the one that preceded classical, was complex, ornamental, and rich in its melodies. Composers of the classical era departed from the evolution of their predecessors and composed music that was considerably simpler in texture. During the classical era, music was composed in such a way that the melody and accompaniment were clearly distinct. Musical experiments were made, and the results completed the transformation from the Baroque era to the classical. The sonata was the most important of these, as well as the most developed. Although Baroque composers also wrote sonatas, the classical style of sonata is completely distinct. The classical sonata is based on conflict, maybe between two themes of contrasting character. During the performance of the sonata, the conflict increases or becomes more involved until it is finally resolved. The sonata allowed composers to give solely instrumental pieces a dramatic character or even a personality. All of the main
Space became another arena for competition after the Soviet Union launched Sputnik, an artificial satellite, in 1957. Americans felt humiliated. The Soviets launched a rocket that could have easily carried a nuclear bomb. The United States did not even launch its first satellite, Explorer 1, until 1958. The already gloomy public mood took a turn for the worse when the Soviets placed the first man in orbit in 1961. President Kennedy's answer to this was to commit the United States to land a man on the moon and bring him back before this decade is out. In August 1962, John H. Glenn Jr. was the first American to orbit the Earth. In the mid-1960s, U.S. scientists used the Gemini program to look at the effects of extended spaceflight on man. Gemini, Latin for twins, carried 2 astronauts, one more than the earlier Mercury series and one less than the Apollo spacecraft. Gemini achieved several firsts: an 8-day mission in August 1965, the longest space flight at that time, and in November 1966, the first automatically controlled re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere. Gemini also accomplished the first manned link-up of 2 spacecraft in flight, as well as the first U.S. walks in space. The Apollo project achieved Kennedy's goal. In July 1969, with hundreds of millions of television viewers watching around the world, Neil A. Armstrong became the first human to walk on the surface of the moon.
The average unemployment rate in the European Union is officially around 11%. This doesn't look at the differing rates between countries. This number can be inaccurate, as there are many jobs to be found in the sector called social economy. Do you have any idea what social economy could be?
Welfare? Part of the European Union is on social assistance, and it's considered a job?
In a sense, welfare is correct, but your explanation is way out in left field. This sector, accounting for 6% of all jobs in Europe, is made up of firms and organizations that have goals that go beyond making money. Their main goal is to improve the quality and accessibility of their products, in addition to increasing the quality of life of their members and employees by educating and training them. Many of these companies focus more specifically on helping build basic job skills in the most needy people: young people who may never have worked, and older, long-term unemployed people. The second group is mostly men who once worked in traditional industries and who find the skills that gave them status are no longer in demand. People working in this sector often have multiple problems, not just the fact that they are unemployed. They range from educational failure to family and housing problems and alcohol or drug abuse. All of those people have their own abilities and skills. They are people who are taking responsibility for their own future, given proper support.
Hey, Jeff, have you been to the new library yet?
Oh, hi, Jen. Yes, I went last week to check it out. I really like it.
Yes, I like it too. I like the study areas. There seemed to be a lot of room to just spread out and focus on the books. It's way better than the old library where it seemed like we were all jammed into one area. Sometimes it was even hard to find a spot to study because it was so crowded, especially during exams. I even like the chairs at the new place. They're super comfy.
You're right. The only bad thing about it is that it's pretty far away. It takes me about 20 minutes to get there by bus, so I can see myself not going all the way downtown if I'm in a pinch for time. I'd probably just stay in the residence and study there.
I was thinking that too. It's too bad it takes so long to get there. I don't like being dependent on the buses. Have you tried riding your bike there? It might take a little longer, but at least you're getting a bit of exercise.
That's a good idea, Jen. Maybe I'll try riding this week. I just have to make sure I'm good and rested. Sometimes when I'm overtired, I'm not too coordinated. Knowing me, I'd have a load of books on my backpack and get distracted by something and crash my bike.
Well, you've just got to keep an eye out for those potholes. Oh, wow, look at the time. I've got to get to my next class. I'll see you around, Jeff.
Good talking to you, Jen. I'll be seeing you.